Hey y'all, how y'all doing? I hope everybody had a blessed week last week. So today we are actually going to go into Genesis chapter 6, the wickedness of man, and I think this series we're actually going to break it up into three different videos. So we'll do the first part, the wickedness of man, wickedness and judgment of man. Noah pleases God, and then the final one would be the ark prepared. And the only reason I'm breaking these up is because there's a lot of information going on in this chapter. You know, with God bringing down, talking about judgment of man, because of the ways that they were going away from God, and then you have the family of Noah, which is the shortest part of chapter 6, and then you have the ark where you get the dimensions and everything that how long, tall, wide, that it took for Noah to build. He basically gave Noah the blueprints for the ark. So with that being said, I'm gonna read the entire chapter for you guys, and then I'll go into my notes. But I'm just gonna go from verse 1 to verse 8, and then next week I'll pick up verses 9 through 12, and then the final ones would be 13 to 22, and then we'll go from there. So with that being said, Genesis chapter 6, the wickedness and judgment of man. Now it came to pass when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born to them, that the sons of God saw the daughters of men, that they were beautiful, and they took wives for themselves, and all of whom they chose. And the Lord said, My spirit shall not strive with man forever, for he is indeed flesh. Yet his days shall be 120 years. There were giants on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God came into the daughters of men, and they were children, and bore children to them. They were the mighty men who were of old, men of renown. Then the Lord saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every intent of the thoughts of his heart was on evil continually. And the Lord was sorry that he had made man on the earth, and he was grieved in his heart. So the Lord said, I will destroy man from whom I have created from the face of the earth, both man and beast, creeping thing, and birds of the air, for I am sorry that I have made them. But Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord. Noah pleases God. This is the genealogy of Noah. Noah was a just man, perfect in his generations. Noah walked with God, and Noah begot three sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. The earth was corrupt before God, and the earth was filled with violence. So God looked upon the earth, and indeed it was corrupt, for all flesh was corrupted, had corrupted their way on the earth. And God said to Noah, The end of all flesh has come before me, for the earth is filled with violence through them, and behold, I will destroy them with the earth. Make yourselves an ark of gopher wood, make rooms in the ark, and cover it inside and out with pitch. And this is how you shall make it. The length of the ark shall be 3 cubits, in its width 50 cubits, and its height 30 cubits. You shall make a window for the ark, and you shall finish it to a cubit from above, and set the door in the ark on the side. And you shall make it with lower, second, and third decks. And behold, I myself am bringing flood waters on the earth to destroy from under heaven all flesh, in which is the breath of life. Everything that is on the earth shall die. But I will establish my covenant with you, and you shall go into the ark, you, your sons, and your wife, and your sons' wives with you. And of every living thing of all flesh you shall bring two of every sort of to the ark, to keep them alive with you. They shall be male and female, of the birds after their kind, of animals after their kind, of every creepy thing of the earth after its kind. Two of every kind will come to you to keep them alive. And you shall take for yourself of all food that is eaten, and you shall gather it to yourself, and it shall be food for you and for them. Thus Noah did according to all that God commanded him, so he did. So, like I said, there's a lot to unpack in this chapter. Now, going from my study Bible, um, we read from verses from the first part of chapter 6. You have the wickedness and judgment of man, and verses 1 through 4. The verses transition to the account of God's greatest act of nature-based judgment on sinful humanity. On a positive note, these first 4 verses demonstrates humanity's faithfulness in fulfilling God's command to multiply. Genesis 1:28. Most controversial sections of this. This is the most controversial sections of the entire Bible, according to my study Bible. Going into the controversies, you have verse 2. Verse 2 begins to build the case that there was something wrong about the way in which God's command to multiply was being fulfilled. Using a language that is similar to the sequence leading to humanity's first sin in the garden, Genesis 3:6, when Eve ate of the apple, or fruit, sons of God first saw something that they thought was good and then took what they desired. Same as when Eve, after being convinced from the serpent, took from the fruit of the tree because she saw that it was good and great, and therefore she wanted it, and she just took it. First saw something that they thought was good and then took what they desired. The controversy that surrounds the phrase "sons of God" it has 3 basic positions. One is heavenly beings. Some consider heavenly beings being angels. An ancient Jewish position accepted by man. Many today favored because in other OT passages refer sons of God as only to heavenly creatures, again, angels. Job 1:6, Job 2:1, and Job 38:7. And the New Testament refers to fallen angels, 2 Peter 2:4, and then Jude 6. With this view, it is believed that the sin that promoted God's anger was a violation of Genesis 2:24, brought about by sexual relations between angels and humans, resulting in the creation of the Nephilim, which is an angel-human hybrid. The difficulties with this viewpoint is, for instance, Jesus indicated that angels do not marry, Matthew 22:30. And Paul used the phrase sons of God to refer to godly people, not angels, Galatians 3:26. Then you have the second point of view is kings or men of high social status, aristocrats. This is supported by the fact that the common Hebrew word for God is sometimes applied to persons who have great social power. Psalms 82:6-7. John 10:34-35. It is said that daughters of men were people of lower status. So the higher class, and then you have the lower class, the beggars and whatnot. The aristocrats, and then you have the beggars and whatnot. So daughters of men were people of lower social status. Thus, the passage is thought indicates possible abuse of the lower class women by litigious men of privilege. People who interpret, who take this view, do not necessarily connect the Nephilim with these marriages. And then the third point of view, this point of view I kind of agree with, is men from is the fact that the men of God are the men from the family line of Seth. Since Seth's line is the line that we're going to continue with all the way over to Jesus, uh, that line and is the line that tended to follow God's word. They weren't perfect, but they tended to follow God and have more faith in Him than than Cain's line. Um, Most popular viewpoint among evangelical Christians, assuming sons of God were descendants of Seth, while daughters of men were descendants of Cain. Descendants of both followed the moral examples set by their respective forefathers. So Cain, with the mark and the fact that even back when in our earlier studies, we were showing that Cain's line was more sinful. Cain murdered his brother. And one of his descendants was proud of murdering somebody just for looking at him wrong. And then tried to take on Cain's 77-fold. And then you have Seth's line, who took over not Abraham, Abel. And even his mom was saying, this one's going to be blessed in a way. And so you have his line following what God had intended for humanity. Again, they weren't perfect, but they were more faithful. The union of these two spiritually incompatible lines was contradictory to God's will, 2 Corinthians 6:14, and resulted in the total corruption of humanity represented by the Nephilim. Verse 3, considered the most disputed in the Bible. It is about God limiting the human lifespan, and then the second is God setting a time for the universal flood. The reference to spirit could refer to the animating force represented in living beings or the Holy Spirit. Closely related to the issue is the appropriate understanding of the phrase strive with. The Hebrew word could also mean remain in. Complicating the issue still further is the Hebrew word basar. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. Basar, which is normally translated flesh, but which can be taken figuratively to refer to that which is corrupt. 6:4, chapter 6, verse 4, two major questions arise in this verse. One, who are the giants? And then two, what, if anything, is their connection to the sons of God and daughters of men? The word giants comes from the Hebrew word Nephilim, fallen ones, a phrase that could mean one, morally physically degraded individuals, or two, angels who fell from heaven, Isaiah 14:12. It is impossible that these are the same race of the giants in Numbers 13:33, since none could have survived the flood in Genesis 7:22 through 23, and could not have lived during post-flood events in Numbers. In addition, the Nephilim are never mentioned as one of the groups to be wiped out by the Israelites when they entered Canaan. The mention in Numbers 13 probably came from the lips of a fear-crazed spy who misinterpreted what he had seen in Canaan. Were these giants products of marriages between the sons of God and daughters of men? It's hard to say. Possibly in the Hebrew text, there is no explicit connection between them. The fact that they were on the earth in those days before and during the sinful unions leads some to suggest that their origins are elsewhere, whatever their ancestry, as mighty men and men of renown. They played a significant role in the pre-flood society. Verse 5, God alone can observe both people's outward actions, Job 34:21, and their thoughts, 1 Samuel 16:7. Saw what it was, when he saw what was visible. That man's wickedness was widespread, and what was invisible, that every intent of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually, their heart. This reflects the ancient conception that this organ was the seat of the intellect, emotion, and will of man. Verse 6, the word sorry does not mean that God had made a mistake. In my study Bible, God had sent. It doesn't mean, from my Bible studies point of view, it also doesn't mean that God had sinned or that he must change his divine nature. He was sorry how man's sin had changed the situation, and that he would now change his course of action accordingly. For the first time, God regretted something that he had made. Not because of something he had done, but because of what humanity was doing. Humanity's preoccupation with evil grieved God in his heart, just as much as Israel's sin will grieve him. Psalm 78:40-41 and Isaiah 63:10. Verse 7, man was created to obey, worship, and fellowship with God. The magnitude of man's sin was progressively increased from eating forbidden fruit, Genesis 3:6, to murder, Genesis 4:8, to polygamy and multiple murders, Genesis 4:23. Lastly, to worldwide preoccupation with evil, Genesis 6:6. God had run out of patience, and the curse of Adam's death will now be amplified in a single catastrophic act, the flood. Man being the capstone of God's creation, the elimination of man would take away any need for the ecological support system that sustained them. It was expedient to destroy beasts, birds, and bugs. As Adam's sin caused him to lose the garden, and Cain's sin drove him away from the soil, Cain no longer being a farmer, now the sins of humanity would cause them to lose not just their life, but the earth as well. And we're going to stop right there. Don't forget to pick up your copy of Someone to Believe In. It is a story of Jesus' life, death, and resurrection told from the point of view of a normal, everyday person. I didn't go to college to be a theologian. I'm not a pastor or anything like that. It was just something that was brought into my heart to do. I am working on other books. And so hopefully this year I will get that finished up and get that in the process of getting printed. So just, y'all have a very blessed day. Thank you.